Yo, I'm gonna spit some game for you real quick about if you're newer in your landscape business to not let your emotions dominate you. You gotta pull that emotional thing out. Here's what I'm talking about. So when you start, if a customer calls you with something that's like to fix a callback or a mistake, or a customer's asking you about something, you might jump to an emotional conclusion and start overreacting in your mind and your emotions and getting upset and basically letting your emotions get in the way. I'll tell you what happened. We're doing spring cleanups and mulch. Boom, 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 boom. Shrub trimming, spring cleanups, mulch. It's that time of year. And when it rains a lot, weeds grow like crazy. Especially like in Michigan, if the humidity is right, weeds will go nuts. And so you could, have just done a spring cleanup and put down mulch. And I have a customer sending me a picture. I don't say anything about my actual customers. That's unprofessional, but I'll tell you a story, right? But a customer, one of my favorite clients, messaged me like, bro, you just put down, you did the spring cleanup and you did all this mulch and there's literally already weeds coming through the mulch, right? And so the customer, who I respect very much, sent me pictures of these weeds coming up, and instantly this old part of myself, like young landscaper Keith, had an emotional response, like it felt like a weight going on my shoulders, of as though if I was like I did something wrong or something, or the customer might have thought that I cut a corner, or I skipped a step, or I did something wrong, or that I was being dishonest. All those defensive protector emotions came up just in an instant. But new Keith was like, wait a second, that's old Keith talking. Let me just look at this objectively. And what I found when I just took a breath and I read the customer's text message and looked at the pictures, and I zoomed in on the picture, I could see that the weeds on the left of the garden bed were actually creeping myrtle. They're a friendly ground cover weed like Pachysandra, creeping myrtle, stuff like that. There's a bunch of different kinds. I won't get into that here, but and then so the weeds all the way to the right, there was a few of them, like literally like maybe 5 or 6 little weeds, and those were called prickly lettuce. They're these stubborn little weeds that come up in the spring. They're soft. They look kind of like lettuce, almost like romaine lettuce with little prickly things. And to get them out, they just rip off, but you have to actually get them by the root. And they grow in these type of temperatures, right? When it's springtime and humid. Now in the hot summer, they don't grow as much unless there's heavy rains. But they just kind of, I don't know, what do they just burn out, we call it, right? Now, the next thing was there was a little bit of weeds. I'll get to the point of this because I want you to understand this, especially if you're new or your first 1 to 2 years of the business, and this will equip you mentally and emotionally. So then I zoomed down. And then there's a little bit of grass on the edge, on the inside of the edging, right? And we actually went and we're digging out most of that grass pretty much pro bono for free. Because during the quote, I asked the customer, now this is more of a common area, like in the back of the yard and the back of the property, there's a bunch of like spruce trees and pine cones and stuff. And it's just a big garden bed to keep it looking clean back there. And when I started talking to the customer, like, hey, how far do you want to go with this? The edging is all like dilapidated and old, and like this plastic edging, it's all like wobbly, and it should really just be ripped out and replaced with good solid heavy duty black diamond edging with lots of stakes. We don't like to put weed barrier fabric down underneath mulch. It doesn't make any sense. It's crazy. A lot of landscapers hate it. I get it. If you put mulch on top of weed barrier fabric, it's going to keep the weeds down for a long time. Maybe about a year, but within the next year, stubborn weeds will come up. You could pull them easier and faster because they didn't have a lot of room to grow. But by the 2nd, 3rd, 4th year, the mulch on the bottom layer starts condensing down and breaking down, turning back into kind of topsoil, and then now you got weeds again. So I advise against it. Some customers insist. They're like, I want to pay you to put down, and a lot of landscapers argue with me, I'm just making my point here, to put down fabric and mulch on top of it, because if that buys us 2 to 3 years of no weeds, it's worth it to us. I'm like, all right, as long as you understand that weeds are weeds, and they like it, I do it. A lot of people argue with me, and maybe I'll change my mind and stop doing it altogether and just tell the customers we don't do that. So I'm still kind of iffy on that part about the customer says they want it, but it's because I think, now that I'm thinking about that, part of it doesn't want me having the customer blaming me for weeds coming up. It's a monthly thing. When I worked for one of the most prestigious landscaping companies in Michigan, we have monthly garden maintenance clients that just understand it's weeds are weeds, right? And so I live in Michigan, and like this, I'm not talking about my client here, and I know I'm digressing a little bit, but we have clients that are like constantly upset and emotionally upset because there's weeds growing in their garden beds, and they're like blown away. But I'm not talking about my client. My client's awesome. But some of these people are blown away, yet they don't want to spend any money when it comes to doing the maintenance, and they're just sick of it. And there's like these weeds. It's like emotionally attached to them. And so I'm like, okay, we could put down fabric and redo the garden beds and literally install decorative stone. And now you won't have any weeds for a long, long, long time, as long as you're doing a spring and a fall cleanup and all the leaves and stuff isn't starting to, it's not staying on the beds and then breaking down and decomposing and then settling into the rocks with all the stuff falling, and then weeds will grow again, right? It's maintenance. And another thing is I don't have the license to spray herbicide, and I don't. So that's why I don't tell the customer, oh, we could just dose it all with Roundup or something like that. That's not my thing. So with all that being said, I had to read this message and look at pictures of a few weeds popping up, not a whole lot. And here's another thing. When you put down fresh mulch in the spring, there's this stuff, it's called dog vomit mold, or it looks like, let me know in the comments below, it almost looks like scrambled eggs that starts growing and multiplying. When it rains a lot, this type of mold will cross-pollinate and get in. And I've had customers calling me, like this one restaurant that we do. I mean, a beautiful restaurant, nice landscaping, and the owner's calling me, freaking out, cussing. What the F? Oh my gosh, we got customers coming in. It looks like there's vomit all over the garden beds. What is in this mulch? And back then I had an emotional reaction. Oh, I don't know. And I start calling around doing research, and it's literally what I just said. It's just a simple mold. It's a fungal, and it's not actually even harmful. It's very mild mold, and it spreads quickly, and it actually dies off quickly once it's exposed to dry heat in its arid environments. So what you do is you just literally get gloves, or you can get like a poop scoop thing and go around, and you can just scoop it out and go around and spot treat. So we ran over to the restaurant immediately, 8 o'clock at night, and we cleaned it all up, and it didn't come back at all. And then as I was going around the neighborhoods, and because my eyes were tuned to this now, I was seeing it growing in all type of people's garden beds. I heard people complaining about it. And then another customer we installed this mulch for, it happened for. But then I was able to, the next time, go, wait a second, I've seen this before, and say, oh, it's a funny name. It's scrambled egg mold or dog vomit mold. It's not harmful. It's just a simple mold. And I call my friend, a certified arborist, Daniel Miraval. He's a board certified master arborist, one of like 800 in the world. Or I'll call like Austin Douglas from Ditch the Itch, who's a certified arborist. I mean, not only are they arborists, they get into like botany, horticulture, and they learn a lot about pests and pest control. So when you take all these classes and get certified, you learn about infestations and disease and monocultures and all this different type of biospecies and mold and fungal infections and rhizosphere, cytosphore canker and oak wilt and all these things. Like, you become pretty educated when your brain is tuned to that. Then you can give educated answer to your customer that's very calm. Like, oh, yeah, that happens once in a while. It's not a big deal. It's just because it's raining so much, it's mold. We can just pick that up real quick, and it usually doesn't come back unless this rain stays like crazy, but we'll just keep an eye on it. It's not a big deal. Did you feel that? It's like different. So taking all that with this customer, I'm looking at the text message and I'm zooming in on these weeds, and I'm like, well, of course there's weeds. So I didn't say that to the customer. It's springtime. Like, but here's the thing. You do a spring cleanup sometimes before the sun and the rain really starts hitting it. It's still really cold out. So these weeds haven't gotten a chance to pop up yet. It's just not the perfect time. Like April showers bring May flowers. So it's freezing in April in the Midwest. It's still not summer yet. You might get a nice day here or there. And then now all of a sudden, come May, that hot sun with the rain and the humidity, boom, weeds everywhere. So you just did a spring cleanup. What does a spring cleanup consist of? Blow out all garden beds from leaves, sticks, litter, debris. Clean out all the leaves from garden beds. You might go around and do a weeding if it hadn't done the year before. You might trim up some shrubs. For the most part, you're just cleaning up the property and getting it nice and pristine clean. And it's still, the grass is just starting to turn green and starting to grow. Maybe some dandelions are coming up, but not really. And part of spring cleanup is mulch. So it looks beautiful. It looks fantastic, especially if you've touched up the shrubs and put a nice clean edge on all the sidewalks and walkways, and you've cleaned up around the brick pavers. So this looks sweet. Now what happens? 2-3 weeks later, 4 weeks later, we're starting to get into these late April, May rains, or throughout May, it rains like crazy, especially in May. Boom, weeds are everywhere. We have this huge growth spurt and everything, and now it looks like you weren't even there. So you have to understand what the cycles of the seasons like. Oh yeah, that happens all the time this time of year. Yeah, we did put mulch down. We put it down actually pretty thick to keep the weeds down. Those weeds are pretty stubborn. Now there's different types of weeds. There's prickly lettuce weed, and there's thistle weed. There's this thing called horsehair. Let me know in the comments below. Horsetail weed. This weed grows underneath like networks underneath the ground. You could pull it up for every day and it'll keep coming back. It's the hardest weeds to get rid of. So when I see that, I let the customer know, oh yeah, we could pull that stuff all day. That's the one weed that's almost impossible to get rid of. I'm really sorry. We can keep pulling it. And we'd have to dig up the whole garden beds and find every little tiny root. There's people I've heard poured gas on it and it ain't coming. It's just horsetail weed. Like when I talk like that, the customer's like, oh, I know. No, you're telling me? I already know. I've been pulling this stuff for 10 years. It won't come up. Where did it come from? And they'll agree. So instead of you getting like emotional, I'm passionate right now, but instead of getting emotional and feeling like maybe the customer's upset for you doing something wrong, or they might be trying to cast blame somewhere. If you did something wrong, you did something wrong, go fix it. But be very careful. I won't say his name, but I have a very famous friend in our industry. He's famous. I can say that. He wouldn't say his. I called him when I've had issues before. I did a whole landscape job with retaining wall, all brand new plants, weeping cherry tree, buried gutter downspouts under the wall, pitched down, and then another 6 feet out from the front of the wall had elbow drains with elbows up to pop up. Drain vents, and I drilled weep holes in the bottom and put pebble stone so that the residual water could drain out. So when the gutters fill up with water, when it's pouring rain coming down the pitch of the roof, gallons and gallons and gallons of water, hundreds of gallons are gushing and going underneath the landscape and going out into the lawn where they belong. Beautiful. Whole landscape job done. Customer calls me up next spring. The next year around in the spring, he's like, I got water in my basement, and you guys are the last guys here. I said, did one of our PVC gutter elbow downspout drain vents get, buried gutter downspouts get clogged? Or did I do something wrong? Did it break open? Did it break apart? I came there pro bono, boom, like in the rain, and dug out both drains all the way down. Our work was still completely solid and secure. There was no cracks. Nothing had come apart. It was great. It stopped raining by that time, and so I took water up and I ran water. It was working perfectly out of the drain. And I was like, bro, man, our work is secure. I don't know what's going on. And so it turned out that, here's another thing you have to know if you live in the Midwest. I can speak for Michigan. Michigan houses have basements that are very common for leaking. I'm kind of going off course here, but this is very important. Okay, I live in Michigan. My whole house is secure and pretty much waterproofed. We have very gutter downspouts. My own house, if we get these torrential downpours in the spring where it's like crazy bombing rain for hours on end, and I'm talking like the streets are flooded, I will get water in a couple spots of my basement where I'm like, where did this water come from? How is this possible? And then I never get water ever again for 2 years. Doesn't happen. Everything's bone dry. Now you're like, oh, there's something wrong. Okay, I can't find what's wrong. And I search and I search and I call and I research, and there's something called, now I'm not saying I know this for sure, but there's something called hydrostatic pressure. When there's so much water in the soil, it's rained so much and the water has nowhere else to go, it's creating a hydrostatic pressure that's literally pushing through. And houses built, I've researched, before 1991 don't have a membrane that's around the entire basement of the house. That's a non-permeable membrane, and for water to push through the hydrostatic pressure that actually can go through the cinder block, through the brick, and then through, if you don't have some type of like a hydro cement or something, or some type of barrier. And obviously, a lot of houses have a sump pump. It'll push water. It'll get into the customer's basement. So as a landscaper, you're going to be very aware of what you're doing and understand pitches and grades and gutters and where's the water going. It's an obsession, especially for guys who do outdoor luxury living spaces and brick pavers. There's actually a guy on YouTube. I forgot his name. I binged out for a couple hours on some of his videos one time because he's a water they do water remediation and drain lines all around houses. I think he does stuff in Florida, does he? And he'll come in and they'll these people just got like a pool and landscape and brick pavers done, and now there's literally water backing up all over in their sunroom. And he'll go and he'll run laser levels and he'll find out everything. And even though he'll even compliment the company, like this company thought all these things out, but they didn't see this. Because during the heavy rains, when the water doesn't have anywhere to go, he'll find an area and he'll be like, it's actually coming from over here where they didn't expect, because they don't have the depth of experience that he has, and the water still got back and now went into the sunroom. And he's like, so what we're going to do, and he'll create this custom drain system that goes and pitches and then goes underground. It goes all the way out where it's supposed to go. And then they'll test it in the video. I was like, dude, this is genius. It's great information. So there's another thing of not being emotionally attached to small stuff. But when it comes to bigger stuff, these are the different lines and levels and stages of growth that you go through. I don't like digging in my landscaping business. I don't do any luxury outdoor stuff. We do landscape jobs from $700 to $20,000. We do jobs for 5, 10, 15, 20 grand, 15 grand, 12 grand. And I've learned in my business, like, you could bite off a little bit more than you can chew. But some of these guys that are biting off these bigger jobs and growing fast, I guarantee you, if that's what you want to do, you should go get the proper training and I forget the name of it because I haven't gone to it. At the Equip Expo every year, they have these classes you can sign up. Go like a day early and sign up for all these classes. Join these groups. Go online. Get around if you want to get into like brick paver patio stuff or big landscaping. Learn about where water goes and get very educated and start out small and work your way up and get the right advice and the right counsel, because it's a huge honor to be able to step foot on people's properties, and it's a very serious and you have to have the utmost amount of integrity and honor and respect when you step on someone's property, knowing that they're literally trusting you and handing over their hard-earned blood, sweat, tears, money. They're paying you and trusting you to do a job on their property. This is their home. Their number one investment. This is their life, right? And this could be their dream to have something cool. And so you better cross all your T's and dot all your I's and make sure you get paid what you're worth. Man, I gotta have my friend Steve DeHant on here. Like, I've gone totally off, I've digressed, but I'm just free-flowing right now. Steve DeHant, I've had him on the Untrapped Alliance. He's my, you can actually get access to the replay of that and all the other replays we've done. It's my private breakthrough group coaching workshop. We go live every other Wednesday around 8 p.m. EST. Most of the time it's at 8 p.m. and you can get on live and get your questions answered. And I bring on guest experts who run multiple 6 and 7 and multiple 7-figure businesses that understand sales, marketing, building a team, branding out your business, and the really high level stuff that's deep and to the point. That's keithkalfas.com/alliance. If you become a member, you get to be a part of our private group, and then you go live with us on Wednesday and be part of our we go live, and then you will be in the chat participating in anything that you want to know. You can ask the experts in real time and work with them whatever issue you have, and then you instantly get access to all the replays. Like in the one of them we did was with Mr. Steve DeHant. He's a good friend of mine. He owns a multi-million-dollar landscaping brick paving business, and his sales process is fire. He has so much confidence with sales that when he sits down with the customer, it comes from a place of confidence and conviction, and they show all the proof of why they're the best company to go with, possibly versus the other companies. Like, they're just showing who they are in the utmost level of integrity. But here's why I'm saying I'm tying all this back not just to sales. It's because just for another reason, my friend Steve, bro, this dude tells me stories of landscape jobs he's been on where, like, they built some, I don't know, something like a $40,000 brick paver wall, and for some reason he didn't know, the wall failed and collapsed, and then he built it again and it failed and collapsed again, and he built it and it failed and collapsed again. Now this guy is high, he understands his stuff, but the nuance of the job of what he was doing, there's probably something going on that was different with the ground, or something that he hadn't been in that territory before, and so he stuck with it and figured it out and did the research and even invented some of his own methods that now he fixed that job, and now it's been standing for like 20 years, and it's beautiful, it's perfect, it's like phenomenal. It's like, that's a huge what is it, like a notch in his belt or something, because he stuck with it until he got it right, and then the customer is a customer for life. And so you go through pain and suffering and trial and error, and you learn mistakes, and you earn your stars and stripes by sticking in it and getting educated and getting the right answers and never quitting and never giving up. And so that's what earns you the confidence to stay calm and stable when a customer presents something to you, instead of emotionally freaking out and feeling like, oh my God, are they telling me I did something wrong? Or did I do something wrong? Or like I said, if you did, you have to go back and fix that immediately. But my famous friend told me, it's not Steve, my famous friend told me, I just wanted to lay that out, don't immediately just admit to a mistake just because you're scared. Now the customer thinks that you did something wrong on their landscape job. You admitted to it because you were scared, and you don't even actually know if you're wrong or not. Like, what are you doing? Now you have to go fix that thing for free, and it might actually not even be your fault for real. So you just don't, I could make a whole video on this, and I want to go ask the person if I can get them on a video and say this right to you, like to your face, because this was a huge lesson for me. And I did it when I called back the customer with the drain issue. I was immediately just gonna throw up my hands and be like, it must be my fault. We're the last person there. He got some water in his basement. But because my friend, who's a landscaper, this is why you should get around other landscapers, told me, hey, don't just automatically admit to something if you don't know. What are you doing? I didn't. It was hard for me to do, but I controlled my emotions. I said, oh, let me come over and inspect it. And I found that him getting water in his basement is because it was raining nonstop for like 10 days straight. Everybody was getting water in their basement. Lots of people, not everybody, that's an exaggeration. I got water in my basement. So I learned how all this stuff works, and the fear drives you into a bunch of research, which educates you and makes you really, keeps you on your toes. But now you can give your customer a qualified answer without being afraid and be like, oh, like, you know, if we did something wrong, I'll fix it. But we didn't do that. And sometimes the customer might not, I haven't had that issue you have to stand up for yourself if you know for a fact, like, you didn't do anything wrong, like if you didn't get water in the customer's basement or something. But my mentor in this area taught me, because now you might be agreeing to fix something that costs $8,000, $10,000, $12,000, and the customer now gets this whole thing done for free, and it never was your fault in the first place, right? It's this interesting thing. So that's why it's so important. You start out with small stuff like some weeds in a garden bed popping up, right? Or maybe like you missed a spot, or you forgot to trim that bush properly. Then you graduate your way up to like, oh, this customer landscape job, a retaining wall, new landscape, buried gutter downspouts, they got water in the basement. Or like, there's nightmare stories that I don't want to go down that I've heard, but you just work your way up to that point, and you grow the confidence in your courage as your belief in your own ability to figure things out, which is really cool, and seeking counsel from wise people. And then you can just stay cool, calm, and collective and do things the right way the first time with confidence, so you know you don't mess up. You wouldn't even consider messing up. You wouldn't even do something like that, right? And you charge appropriately to afford yourself the time to slow down a little bit and do it the right way the first time. If you're running a business with prices so low that you feel so rushed that you feel like you have to cut corners and you're in anxiety, you have to stop that. Like, stop that right now, immediately. If you already promised customers you were going to do a certain job for a certain price, and especially if it's in writing, you have to do that and fall on your sword and learn that lesson. It's not their fault that you undercharged the job, right? But from right now, this moment moving forward, you got to have a conversation with yourself. Be like, that's it. I got to get educated on this. I got to raise my prices. I got to make sure. And there was a moment for me. I said, that's it. It was years ago. I'm only doing the best work for the best prices, like the high quality work for prices. And that also means if you're walking around your property with the customer, any little thing that pops up, you don't skip over it. You address it right there, right now. You're like, what about this? You want to go ahead and get this thing fixed? Or do you want to leave that alone? Is that like in your budget right now to get this thing, like say there's a garden bed, you're going to redo it, but there's a big stump in the middle of the garden bed. What about that stump? Do you want us to grind that thing or call someone to get that ground out for you and clean it all up? Or you want to leave it there for now? What do you want to do? How much is it going to cost? $500. They're like, leave it there for now. Okay, so leave it there for now. It could be verbal, but it could be in the contract. Do garden bed, leave stump, which means, so we're doing this, which is included, which means what's excluded? It means we're not doing the stump. That's excluded, verbally and in writing. Now, the customer can be like, hey, I thought you guys were going to remove that stump. And then you're like, oh, shoot, the customer automatically assumed that we were going to remove that stump for $500. I never agreed to that, because they just imagined and they thought it. Maybe you didn't talk about it, or maybe you talked about it real quick and you said, oh, yeah, and you went over it, and you're like, whoa. So, and now you got a problem. I did like a landscape job for like $8,500. The customer wanted all this done with the garden beds, rip out these few old trees, and then put some new arborvitaes and the rocks. It was beautiful. Whole time, there was another garden bed on the other side of the yard that looked just like it, but much, much, much smaller. We never even talked about that garden bed over there. I really didn't even pay attention to it because I was so focused on the job. We did the whole job, and the whole job was done. Then, when we finally did the final walk around of the property, and I was getting the final payment, the final deposit, everything looked beautiful. I noticed literally 20 feet over on the other side, or 25 feet over there, from the edge of this garden bed to that, there was that other little garden bed that was never even touched. We never talked about redoing that one over there. Just like we didn't talk about redoing that one over there. But it was close to it in proximity. And I was like, whoa, I hope the customers didn't automatically assume that that was part of the job. We never even talk about that. So I was like, in my mind, I was like kind of ignoring that garden bed. And I was like, I was sweating bullets. I wasn't physically sweating. I was nervous. And I'm like, I got to bring this up now. And I went over to that garden bed, I said, in this garden bed, we never talked about anything about that. So we didn't touch that garden bed. But I can see that that could probably use some work in the future. But back to this is really great. And as the customers looked at that garden bed, right, I could have made this whole thing up in my head. It could have been all in my head. I don't know. That's the problem. They looked at it and they just kind of were like, yeah, and they went back to the project. And this is what my gut tells me. There's a possibility they could have thought, I can't believe I'm admitting this, but this is real landscaper talk. There's a possibility that they could have thought that that was included, but we never communicated it. And in that moment, it could have went one way or the other. They could have all of a sudden gotten upset and be like, wait, I thought that was... So by me confidently, I'm not telling you what to do here. I knew what I had to do in that moment at my level of which I've always strive and take a lot of pride in my integrity. But in that moment, I felt the right thing for me to do to protect myself was to be like, and that we never even talked about doing that, or I said something the right thing for the moment, to reinforce that I consciously was aware that we had never talked about it, right? And for them to go, I wasn't trying to insert something in their head, I was just reaffirming myself. I feel like I'm like defending myself or something. And they could be like, yeah, we didn't talk about that. So,